welcome to, well, it's not exactly the Orient Express, but I'm here on the Fanxipan Express. Fanxipan, I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, which is a train from HaNoi to LaoCai, which is up in the north, and that LaoCai is a border town with China. On the train here, it's a night train, it's just left at 9:10. It's a bit of a far cry from my last experience when I was coming down from Kunming, down from China the other direction, because as you can see, there's no one else here in the cabin. For about $30, I've paid for this whole cabin, but I think that it must be a little bit special because it's a Wednesday night, so how many tourists are really going up to LaoCai? I'm actually going up there so I can take a trip about 45 kilometers away to Sapa, which is in the mountainous region of Vietnam. Cool off a little bit. I know I came to escape London's wintry weather, but Hanoi's been a little bit warm for me. The thing that I find so interesting about this trip is, like I said, it's a bit of a far cry from my trip down here last time. Last time I was on this train track, which was built by the French to connect Hanoi with Kunming, which very interestingly, the French were trying to make Kunming and the Yunnan province really part of Indochina, so they were doing everything they could to make sure that that seat of power was under their control. So there are actually still a few French buildings, very, very few left today in Kunming that you can see, and the one thing that they've left behind, at least here in the Vietnamese side, is the railroad. Now, the Chinese failed to take care of it, so it doesn't quite connect the way it used to, but they're working on fixing that again, which should be quite exciting. But the last time I was on this French railroad track was this winter, the Christmas of 2004. That's right, nearly 5 years ago now, because we're just in November. And the thing that I remember, it took us 24 hours to get from Kunming to HaNoi, and that started with a nice long bus journey, and I had had us delay for an extra day because I hadn't finished grading my first semester of papers, and it was just taking forever. So I asked that we wait a day, but we got the bus from Kunming down to Hukou, and we crossed the border station. It was late at night. We had the speakers blaring across the Vietnamese border announcing that it was 9 o'clock Beijing time. So I love that even there you have Beijing time, right? Beijing is in control. They're shouting across the Vietnamese border, even though across the other side of the river it was only 8 o'clock. But I remember we arrived in LaoCai, and finally, after quite a few minutes in borders, immigration, customs, and we walked across the river on the bridge, carrying our bags over our shoulders and things. And we arrived there, and we had no idea what we were doing. We had no Vietnamese dong, we only had Chinese currency. What they were saying to us was ga, ga, ga. And finally it occurred to me that ga, that sounds like ga, which in French means train station, which was exactly where we were trying to go. So yes, we insisted on going to the ga, and we ended up walking because we didn't have any money. These were people trying to take us in a taxi. And when we got there, we found the train station actually very easily, maybe a 15-minute walk from the border, and were able to buy a train ticket, and we changed money at a little cafe that we ate, not a very good exchange rate, but what are you going to do, right? Train, we were in a bit of a, we weren't in anything quite so fancy. I think we paid for the cheapest ticket, or just whatever was left, frankly, because we had no plans, we didn't know what we were doing. So we got on, and there were 3 of us, so it filled up the compartment. There are only 4 places in here. And the guy, the porter, I guess, ended up sharing the last bed with us. And I was exhausted because I'd stayed up the whole night before working grading papers. So I just crashed right away, and I was nearly asleep when he came in. And I just remember him banging my ass, giving me a little bit of a massage, saying, you know, trying to not really chat me up as such, but trying to say hi. And I was just like, what is going on? Finally, Chesser, I was traveling with, and Marie-Liesse, they just laughed after he left the room. But it was like, let me sleep. But yeah, so that's my first memory of this particular railroad journey. It's a bit strange because when I arrived in HaNoi, we arrived at 5 in the morning, maybe 6 in the morning, which is about the same time that I'm going to arrive up in LaoCai. And HaNoi was dead. HaNoi was empty. There was nothing there, nobody out on the streets. So we just wandered around looking for some pho bo or pho ga, the noodles with either the chicken or the beef. And I think we ate near the railroad tracks, near the train station. Wandered the streets, and it was so peaceful and so quiet. And you compare that to a few hours later, by the time we found a place to stay at like 9 in the morning, and you start walking around and it's just packed, full of people, full of mopeds, motorcycles, horns, traffic, and it never stops. It doesn't stop until 2 the next morning, or maybe midnight, but still. Quite good experiences, and I'm quite excited to be going back the other direction and looking forward to taking you along for the ride.